You are listening to Deconstruction Podcast, presented by the Architectural Authority magazine.
I do believe that we as a professionals, we have the power.
Absolutely.
To change. The tremendous responsibility that we carry with the decisions that we make need to be addressed.
If all you do is design and you don't implement, then that's
nothing happens.
Nothing happens. Well, you're a great designer, but you're not actually putting anything into the world.
Action.
But I also think there's a different kind of design that is active, which is putting the right people together, having the ideas spread, giving people opportunity to engage and struggle with tension, to apply and to say, oh gosh, that didn't work. So design, I think, can be active, right? And so changemaking is design in many ways.
This episode is brought to you by Paramount Consulting and Engineering. Since 2010, Paramount has over 4,000 projects completed across Florida and the Caribbean. From building envelope consulting and structural design to special threshold and forensic inspections, Paramount delivers precise, reliable solutions backed by experience, expertise, and results you can trust.
This is Deconstruction, a space where we explore the ideas, trends, and stories shaping the world of architecture, design, and construction. From vision to execution, we examine the forces influencing our industry and how it can evolve to meet the needs of our times. This podcast is produced by the Architectural Authority magazine, a platform dedicated to supporting creators and giving voice to those shaping the future of our industry. Today's guest is Sandra LaFleur, a purpose-driven senior-level executive with deeper experience in change-making and social impact for higher education, programming, innovation, management, and organizational evaluation. Sandra is also a long-term friend whose work I deeply admire, in her passion, her consistency, and the measurable impact she has created through her career. She is known for her ability to connect vision to mission, translating strategy into action while mobilizing teams around the shared goals and meaningful outcomes. In this conversation, we will explore how principles of change-making and social impact can be applied to the built environment, and how leadership, education, and collective action can move our industry forward. Welcome, Sandra.
Gracias. Thank you, Abby.
I'm so happy to have you here. We have had this conversation so many times in our private reunions. I say, okay, how can we bring the knowledge and the powerful of Sandra to this environment to help people? Because the way that I see our industry moving forward is infused with change making and social impact. And it's beautiful that we connected a few weeks ago about this, about the whole clarity that you have now and the whole clarity that I have now, that everything just fit perfectly to create this space so we can use your brain and your knowledge and your beautiful career to give I will say clarity to the people in our industry on how can we, with the tools that we have and learning about change making and the principles and all of this framework that you are just super strong on that, how we can impact our industry, and impacting our industry will impact the way that we live.
Right. It's an honor to be here. It's a pleasure. This is fun. We do this all the time.
Exactly.
And I think you're right. Like the last conversation we had, we just kept going. And, in the work that I do, it's interesting because I've been using the word design. And for like the last 2 years, I specifically shifted some of the conversations that I have with students when they first get to college, and I call them designers. And so I think that's what started our conversation. It's a perfect intersection for us. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Correct. I want the people to understand a little bit of how Sandra got into change making and social impact, because this is so powerful. Your career, how your career started, and how you are infusing education with all these, mindset changes that for me, it's just amazing.
I wish I could tell you that I have a very sexy answer, but I don't.
It's academic.
I know. And I have students and other staff that have said, how did you get to do what you do? I'm just super lucky. But I'll say that, part of the reflection that I did a few years ago in a leadership retreat, they said, write the first chapter. You're going to write 3 chapters. The first chapter is how you got here. The second chapter is where you are now. And then the third chapter is going to be, where do you want to go? So that first chapter, I took like an hour of silent reflection. We were told, go outside, find a tree, sit under the tree and just write. And I started writing. And honestly, it's very simple. It's my immigrant experience. as you know,
Fantastic.
I'm Chinese Cuban descent. And so I grew up in a small restaurant, and I was it. So
I love that story. Tell it.
I know I grew up in a small restaurant, and how we got to the restaurant was the first. I would say that there's probably three things that really impacted me. My father was Chinese and lived in Cuba for a few years after he left the revolution in China. Then he went to Cuba. Then he had to leave Cuba. So he was a waiter in Hialeah here in South Florida for a few years, and he had a customer who kept coming every Sunday with his family. And he, after a few years, he said to my father, "What do you want to be? What do you want to do?"
Wow.
And my dad said, "Well, I would like to own my own restaurant someday." So a few weeks later, his name is Mr. K. We'll just call him Mr. K. That's how I grew up knowing him. He came back with his family, had a Sunday dinner as always, and at the end of the dinner, he gave my father an envelope. And in that envelope, he had a check.
Wow.
And it was, back then, 1975, it was $15,000. And he said, "Start the restaurant and you will pay me back. And you will do this and and I want this money back to the penny, but on your own time. And you have to charge me every time I come to eat at the restaurant. You have to charge me." So for my father, giving back was part of it.
Exactly.
And then, it's
we knew that we were crying. We knew this would happen.
So from that point on, the way my father and my mother led the restaurant. So then you had the Maria boat lift in the 1980s. And one day my dad said, "Vamos," like after work. I said, "Where are we going? Are we going home?" He said, No, we have to take this food." And he was putting these trays of food in the back of the car. I'm like, "Papi, where are we going with all this food?" He said, "We're going to the Orange Bowl." "¿Qué pasa en el Orange Bowl? What's going on?" He said, "A bunch of refugees just got here and we have to help feed." So it's in my blood. So giving back is just part of it. But I didn't know that you could give back in a way that could also create a life. Like you kind of grow up thinking social impact and being good to the community is something that you do on your spare time. And it's what you do in your time.
Beautiful.
All of your time, right? So I think just one thing led to another, and I've had amazing mentors. I went to school not knowing what I wanted to do. I love to study. And then, long story short, all of a sudden I have this opportunity to do what I loved to study, but to do it for communities that needed support. And all of a sudden it was the nonprofit space is what called for me. So that's where I got my start, is in the nonprofit space.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And then the way that the lives give us exactly what we need to create that sense of gratitude and opportunity, because we don't know when in our journey will we find these angels that will infuse our life with the right message, with the right resource or tool that will clarify our path, and that will lead us to a position, career, or activity that will fulfill us. Because the issue that I find, like the main challenges in our students and everybody around me, is the lack of purpose. They don't know what they want. They don't know that what they are doing is impacting, and that empty space is creating empty companies and empty spaces. No, so if you don't have a purpose, you don't have a mission, you don't have like a way of understanding how you are valuable for the bigger picture, for the community, for whatever you do impact. Also the responsibility on that, like whatever you do, you carry the responsibility of the impact that whatever you do to the rest of the community spaces. And
exactly.
So in the spaces that you work, Sandra, and the creation of this change making and social impact, I will say focused career, where is the core of that change making, like the principles of change making? Talk to me about a little bit.
So
where do we begin?
Of course, you're talking and my head is going, and I have all these other things, because I think at the core of purpose is connection. So when we talk about, and I think about students, obviously that's my space right now. So I have students, young people first, and then they became students, and so I followed them. But something that you said just made me think, Adri, like when we feel like there's no purpose, or we don't have purpose, or when people say, like, I need to find my purpose, I think all we need to do is find connection. We are all we have. We are all we have. But we're filling up our time with things. First person
Mea
to admit,
culpa. It's okay.
doom
Everybody.
scrolling, immediate gratification, and there's no chance to connect person to person. I think we find our purpose through other people. So in change making, core principles are interconnectedness. It's rooted in wanting to make a change for the better of who? Of someone else. Because if it's for someone else, it's for me too, right? Because we're interconnected. So I think to find purpose is to find connection. When we don't have enough connection, we struggle with purpose. And those of us that have purpose, it's absolutely grounded in connection to one another, connection to the environment, which is why I think this conversation is so cool. Because if you would have asked me 5 years ago, let's do this podcast that I want to do on design and construction and architecture, which I've always been in awe of the field of architecture, to be able to create, because I believe people that can create are so powerful. But then I realized a few years ago, like I told you, telling my students, you create. We create.
We are
Every day
creators.
we are creating our day. You make choices before you leave your house, 100 choices that you just decided how to design the rest of your day. What you pack for lunch, what you're going to wear, whether so it's just having that reset of my mind just a few years ago it's really elevated my passion in this work for change making in different ways.
Incredible. I had so many things. So we talk about interconnection. What are the other three?
So interconnection, so we're talking about core principles of change making. The way we define it, for instance, at the college, which is where I focus my time, it has to be pro-social. So interconnected, meaning that it's not just one person or one thing or one entity, right? Pro-social, that it has to be for the benefit of at least one other person. It cannot just be making a positive change for myself. That's great. Hey, because personal transformation is needed before social transformation. We can't think about changing the world around us if we're not willing to look at ourselves first. That's a whole other story. That's a whole other podcast. But so interconnectedness, pro-social, doing it for the benefit of someone else, big or small. That change making is not about being Mother Teresa or Mahatma Gandhi, or Martin Luther King Jr. It's you do what you can today, and whatever little bit is going to be another piece, another pebble, another stone, another star in the greater constellation of shifts, right?
Beautiful.
And then I think the last thing is start with what matters to you. Because if it doesn't matter to you, and if you don't feel like you belong, then there's no incentive. So
motivation,
our focus, exactly,
drive, force.
Right. So how do we as parents, as family members, as tias, abuelos, madrinas, how do we help our young people figure out what they are attracted to and to feel that this is their space, that they belong here just like everybody else?
I won't limit the conversation about only students, because in this environment that we are talking about, I find many of my coworkers and my the people that work around me in this industry lost. Lost because they had not aligned whatever they are doing with their drive and purpose, and that connectivity that you are mentioning, they got disconnected from the outcome, from the rest of the environment, either the environment, the actual impact, the result of the impact that they are trying to make, and that creates a sense of insatisfaction.
Right.
They feel that they are not doing what they were supposed to be doing. They are, 40 plus years with a successful career, and they do not know what to do with what they have.
Right. And I think when I talk about change making with students, and I speak about it with the staff that work at the college, it's interesting because I have as much reaction from staff as I do from students, because we just go and we do the things. But why are you doing things? And remember that what drew you here could have been a purpose, or maybe you found purpose along the way. You did it because it was a job, but in that job you found some level of connection and satisfaction for someone else, because we are in service to each other. I am because we are, right? There's a Ubuntu, that beautiful African saying, I am because we are.
Beautiful. I am because we are. Beautiful. Change making. Then we have connectivity. We have a social input, and the rest.
No, I think that's like, I think when we think about how we get students to understand their purpose, it's that in and of itself is change making to me. It's just helping each other find the connection to one another and to the things that we're doing for one another. That makes a big difference. So
okay, so those are the principles. Regarding the principles, how's the way that you infuse this connection, the change making to the students? How's that program work? Like in terms of what do you teach? What do you ask them?
Right. So
Because it's kind of like, change making is a beautiful. Yesterday I was having a conversation with somebody else that we were talking about the like washing of the wall of different words that we say, okay, money washing of the different words in the market. So change making now is also a word that is big.
Yeah.
But what does it mean? No.
I think for us, so I'm really into helping build the field of changemaker education, that it's a transformative way of teaching. You teach the same way, right? You're going to teach chemistry, you're going to teach architecture, physics, whatever. But how do you do it with this veil, with this understanding of what the bigger purpose is? We're teaching chemistry because we need to learn. But for what end? To solve what problems? At the end of the day, we are a very fragile thing. We're an experiment, right? Keeping community is hard. And we are in service to each other. I know everything sounds like service, and I don't mean just like volunteer hours. I'm talking in service. Our purpose is one another. So when students come to school, a lot of times, I don't know what I want to do. And I understand we need to pay our bills. We need to keep a roof over our head, put clothes and food on the table. And that does not mean that along the way, or even with what you have to do, that you can't find that purpose of bringing joy and well-being to the people around you, or to the people that you're serving, or the people that are buying your service, or the people that you're connecting with. So with students, the bet that I'm hedging is education is under attack in so many ways. With the rise of technology, I'm not an AI naysayer. Technology is good, but technology is something that we should be using. Right now, technology is using us. And that's our decision. And so when students come, they're feeling disconnected, they're feeling disengaged. There's so many different pieces of education right now that are under attack.
Talk to me about that, because those issues are the issues that we are seeing throughout. You find them, and the good thing about the work that you are doing that I think is amazing is that you are identifying them when they are in a young stage. Yeah. So at that young stage can be intervened, can be improved. When we are like 40 plus and we have the same issues and conflict, it's difficult. It's more difficult because you have already this I will say rituals of creating the same cycles, negative cycles. So what are those main issues that you find in education now to do not foster connectivity and all of that?
One of the things is, and I think this is a question we were going to talk about at some point today, but it's sort of like education. One of the pieces that I think education is suffering from is, again, this could be misunderstood, so I really want to be clear. The advances of technology are wonderful, right? Technology can help us get to answers quicker, right? But they're just tools.
Correct.
And what it's doing is replacing thinking. And it's dangerous because people my age, not even your age, my age, we have the benefit of knowing what it is to do things analog and to do
we know the difference, exactly.
So I can be, and I had to learn how to use AI in school. I just got my doctorate, so it was expected that I would have to tell my professors when and how I used artificial intelligence. I thought, I'm not using art. What are you talking about? And like, no, you have to. Okay.
Otherwise, you won't finish in the time that this incredible deadline.
Or I was thinking, isn't that cheating? And they said, no, it's not cheating. You have to. So this idea of co-intelligence, of how to work with AI. So I will say that I started to use it to help me synthesize. But in order to synthesize, you have to have input. Exactly. You have to have raw material to give. Correct. So I feel for folks in my space, not my space, but my age, my experience level, right? Coming in with our own ideas, bad or good, is input. But when students today are coming in with nothing because they're so used to just grabbing it. So trying to help students understand the difference between expediting and efficiency versus synthesizing and judgment, it's not the same thing.
Correct.
So I think, and having them, what's interesting is when you talk to students, they know this is a problem and they're looking for genuine connection. Sometimes they're looking for it more obviously, and others times they don't know it yet, but the moment you give them a taste of a connection moment, you would think that we just like invented like
The
bread.
wheel, yeah.
Yeah, the wheel. They're like, that was so awesome. And I'm like, that was a conversation. It was nothing else. You know, and like
Exactly. They are not used to.
I have
We are
a s-
not used to. We have grown disconnected.
right, for being as connected as we are, for being like the generation or the time where we're saying interconnectedness and connection. Interconnectedness is not the same thing as connection. We can connect probably to the moon at this point. You know, the minute we start putting buildings on the moon or on Mars, we're going to be able to talk to them, FaceTime, you know, what that's not the same thing as interconnected. Knowing that my well-being is connected to your well-being is not the same thing as saying I know where you are. That's great. So we're at a time where we have so much connection, and yet the signs of
We
our
are not
health.
interconnected. So we have so much connection. We are not interconnected. We are not interconnecting.
Right.
And that's when we tie to the environment. That's when we tie to
Right.
design. That's what we tie with the community of the industry that is creating something that will interconnect.
Right. And I was thinking about that question, like what can folks in your industry and architecture and construction and design, everything, right? Because we're not siloed. So this whole perspective of society, it's funny. I'll say this, and this is going to relate. So one of the institutes, I work with two institutes in my office of Changemaking, the Institute for Civic Engagement and Democracy, which is all people, systems. You know, people think it's politics. It's not just politics. Civic engagement is not just politics. It's well-being, it's art and culture, it's all things that are of community life. And then I have the environmental group, which is the Earth
Beautiful.
Ethics Institute. For so long, these two teams are separate, which, okay, they have different funders, I have different staff, they have different missions, but my work has been to try to say we are nothing without our environment, and our environments are there for us too. Like, so when we say community and we say society and we don't think the physical, we're crazy.
Exactly. We are disconnected.
The physical drives, right? Just like we say, form follows function, or, you know, the relationship between form and function. Form is the built environment. So how designers, how architects, and how, those in the construction field create spaces that engender connection, force connection, I think is really important right now. That's why parks will always be like a conversation point for communities, because when we don't have green space, I'll take a walk in any neighborhood and I'm looking at, do we have enough trees? Do we have sidewalks that invite people to walk? Do we not have parking so we can't come? Like all those things we think about, but we're not integrating into what it means for the connection that's going to happen or that's not going to happen. You know, we either are inviting it or we're disinviting it. So as designers, I think that's a really important piece.
No, and fantastic that you put it that way, because this is the conversation that we are having in this space, in the deconstruction environment. Every day I meet someone that is in our industry, from design, construction, development, etc., that is coming to the conclusion that this connection is making us sick.
Mm-hmm.
We are not being supported by the space that we are ourselves creating,
Right.
because we are not creating it from the perspective of human well-being, interconnectedness, and
Mhm.
understanding what we really need.
Mhm.
Because sometimes we believe that beauty is what we need,
Right.
but it's not.
Right.
The space that we inhabit needs to respond to our well-being, lighting, biophilia, shape, everything affects our neurosystems. And then we were having a conversation
Right.
with a neuroarchitect a few days ago. I said, everything is related with your brain, with the way that you perceive the world around you. So if you live in a black box, what's the world that you are perceiving?
You can't. You
Correct.
perceive one dimensional, one color, so monotone, right?
Exactly. So
Right.
the way that we design our day-to-day experience, and the word design, and coming back to the beginning of this conversation, is beautiful, because we every day, no matter the role that we have in this cycle, we have the opportunity to decide how we perceive the world around us and how we impact it. Because it's not the same that you decide to walk into the park or spend the whole day in front of your computer
Right.
in an hostile environment, or paint the walls of your house, buy a plant and put it, by
Right.
your desk. Because after COVID, everything changed.
Right.
Everything changed. And if we were disconnected before, in COVID, we got physically disconnected, and it was even worse. That the gap, or I would say the that separation, what it became evident.
Right.
Like we started understanding that, okay, we were not going in the right direction, and then this make it evident, right?
Mhm.
So in terms of a community, because this is another or another point that I do believe we need to talk about. How do you infuse the sense of community into this process? What is community for you, and
Mm.
how that ties to the whole process of change making? Because understanding community will give us, the audience, a more clear understanding of what we mean with, okay, that interconnectedness, and that of how our impact, how our activities impact others.
Yeah. Okay, so there's no right answer, I hope, right? So for me, community is about belonging.
Okay.
And so that's been a topic, a construct that I've studied a lot over the last few years, which is, what does it mean for us to belong, not just to a space or to a group, but to each other, right? Again, it goes into this responsibility that we have to each other. So we talk about belonging. What makes us feel like we belong, right? It's basically acceptance, not just acceptance, but authentic acceptance, right? So having
Unapologetic. You are who you are.
unapologetic, right? And I'm going to respect it, and I may not understand it, but that vulnerability, the ability for me to be vulnerable and know that you're going to be okay with it, that I can show up however I need to show up, that you invite me to show up, and that you say, no, 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 you be you, do you, and that I can do me, and that I'm valued and respected and safe. So sense of belonging is about making sure that you feel connected, not just to the space, right? And to the people, but to each other. And so that's rooted in safety. It's rooted in acceptance. It's rooted in vulnerability. Yeah. Because if you can't if you don't feel, and there are many different dimensions, but I would say that those are the ones that you feel safe to be yourself, that you feel seen and heard, valued for whatever you think you bring or that you don't bring, that people still care. To me, I always tell our staff, I tell my staff, I tell faculty, well, I share this with them. If we don't start with a sense of belonging, we won't have students understand the why behind change making.
Correct.
Because why would I want to get involved in making this space better if I don't feel like it's my space too, right?
Correct. I'm not connected to it. I don't know
Right.
how it benefits me. It's not.
Right.
It does not reflect me.
Right.
So I don't. If
It's
you
not
don't
mine.
feel exactly, if you don't feel that connection, that belonging, you don't take care of the space. You
Right.
you don't
Oh.
invest time or effort or anything related to
Right.
the nurturing of that
Mhm.
whatever you are creating. And it's super important.
It's so funny because you said that and it just reminded me of my dad again. It's so funny how so many of these things come back to because we owned the restaurant, right? Everything was ours. So if I threw something on if I didn't put something away, it would still be there for me tomorrow and I'd have to put it away tomorrow.
Right.
Or if I didn't take care of something that we bought, I don't know, a new cash register, something,
Then it
my
got
dad,
damaged.
my mom, you can't, that's ours. We have to take it's because it's mine, right? So when we go into these workspaces, it drives me crazy sometimes, even with my staff, with my team. We buy things and it's like we have to take care of things. So how do we take care of those things? Because that is part of how you pour into something or you pour into someone. How do you take care of them so that they know that they belong, that they're yours, you know?
Sandra, I have one question that I always come back when I was a professor at the university,
Mhm.
and it's very difficult because you get instructed to instruct students to a
Yeah.
way of thinking,
Right.
and you don't allow them to think by themselves. Now the tendency is, you need to think, critical thinking, dig. But in my era, when I
Right.
was being a professor, I was given, you need to teach them this way. This is the right way, no? So when you when you infuse whatever product, whatever activity related to design with so many frameworks, and they cannot be themselves, meaning the person that is designing, whoever they are designing, a program, we are talking about the word designing as you are using it with your students. You are the designers, you are the creators of your life, your careers, your everyday. So when you are given these frameworks, very strict, that do not belong to you because they were created by somebody else with different paradigms, with different stories, with different. So there is no way that with that framework you can create something that you feel is yours. So the process of in the industry, in the design industry, designers are creating beautiful, aesthetically impressive spaces that feel completely dead because they are like a picture. They don't have feelings, they don't have emotions, they don't connect with the environment, they don't connect with the people around because they don't use the proper channels to connect with the community that is going to use it. Because one of the things of the new wave of designing and construction and regeneration and ecology is the regeneration of the space. And the process of regeneration involves sitting on a table with all the people or with all the shareholders, the occupants, the designers, the investors, the people that is going to steward the property, the natives, the park takers, like everybody on that will be part of the project needs to be sitting on a table, and the result of everybody's input will be the project.
Right.
And those projects are known or are shown to be more successful because they do reflect that belonging.
Right.
Everybody input it.
It's about empathy, right? So what you're talking about is, in business models too, you start with the user, you start with the customer in mind. So when we design, how are we designing human-centrically? Not just general human-centric, but for the unique designer, the unique profile of the user that's going to be in that space. So when you invite the community to tell you what it needs and what it wants, what its pain points are, what its joy points are, then you're designing for them. And that to me is empathy, which is one of our 4, attributes at the college. For change making is how you have to start understanding first how other people feel. Just
Correct.
just without judgment. This is how they feel. And then how do you take that data in to use it in a way that can help you build connection, to have relationship, to have there's a term, I don't remember what it is, resonant relationship.
Wow.
Where I'm working off of what you're giving me, right? So
Correct. Correct. So we have the empathy. We have the repeat that to me because you're the
so our
expert.
4 we have 4 attributes. So you're
4
one
attributes,
of the
exactly.
things that we've talked about. You asked me this last time. What are we really focusing on at the college? If I could say, and I thought about this too, like even with Noah, with as a mom, like you want your kids to be everything. They're not going to be everything. So they can't be everything. We can't be everything. So what are the things that are really critical? I would say empathy, the ability to feel for other people, reflection, just huge, self-acknowledgement, right? Like, how do you think you're showing up? How do you think you're impacting the person in front of you? How do you feel by the person that's sitting in front of you? Just quiet the mind. Again, space here is very important. How does space invite us to reflect? That could be a question for your field. Resilience, which is, it's not going to be easy. Nothing's easy. So how do you, this is a whole nother conversation, but like, how do you move through tension? And tension is I would agree that tension is a critical element of being human. Otherwise, we're just machines.
Correct.
Right? So we have to go through the tension, suffer the tension, survive the tension, thrive from the tension. You know what I mean? So that's
The process, a journey.
so tension and resilience go hand in hand, and then action. We have to do. We don't, change making is not change thinking.
Without acting on it, right?
So I tell my students, I don't want to talk about change thinking. We can think about it all the time. Well, you know what they should do? Okay, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Because we have agency. The minute we give up our agency, that's the minute we start to devolve.
I love the fact that it's the meaning of the change making is action. At the end, that's what I think it's been missing from the evolution of my specific industry is it's stayed in the thinking. They haven't been able to implement it
Right.
because there are so many
Right.
factors that are preventing the final implementation, the final action. And it's more related, I will say, with the empathy,
Mm-hmm.
with the fact that they cannot, the some of the big players cannot connect with the actual community that they are serving, because at the end we all play a role. And that role, as you're mentioning,
Yeah.
whoever you are doing, the connectiveness, how you are showing up,
Right.
how you are listening, how you're respecting others, and what are you doing with that, in terms of acting on it,
Right.
is the whole full cycle. And in our industry, there are a lot of missing points. They act without the acknowledgement or the reflection, and the other people,
Right.
they don't feel belonging. So then then the actual space gets disconnected.
Right. Or I think it's also like you're saying this, and again, I'm thinking this is just like at lunch when we're always eating food together.
And
Sometimes I think
deconstructing the world.
right over dim sum. Um, Sometimes it's not just that they don't have empathy. I think they don't have the resilience. I had a situation at work.
Explain us that.
At work just last week. Innovation. So what you're talking about is asking the field to consider. You're inviting the field. You're inviting your colleagues to be challenged to do something different that is moving us towards more connection, more interconnectedness. And sometimes it's not just empathy that's missing, like that they don't know. Sometimes it's fear of failure. That's the one I encountered last week, which to me
Yes.
I tied to resilience, which is like,
Specifically failure to lose money, because in this industry,
Right.
the ROI, which is the
Right.
money at the end, is what they fear not to get there. Like
Right.
this is the main, I will say, driver, and at the end, it's
Right.
not. It shouldn't be, because it doesn't. The products that they are getting out there or putting out there are not connected, and to be not connected do not create belonging, and then the
Right.
whole cycle gets destroyed,
Right.
distorted.
And it's a risk. I mean, I get it. I don't get it. It's not my world. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not a I work in a very densely bureaucratic system, and I try to make change from the inside out, but there are different ways that we can get into change. And so it's not easy to be the disruptor. It's not easy to say, I don't need to make money. It's not easy to say, yes, I made the mistake, but look, we learned this little piece. I think that's the part of long-term change that we have to sit with, which is nothing happens overnight. Nothing good is easy. We know all the different sayings, but how do you really live it? So I was challenging a group at work to try something different. There's this problem, and everybody's talking about the problem, and over here there's this tiny little solution idea. It's been tested a little bit, but this whole notion of from pilot to scale, from pilot to beta, from beta to pilot, from pilot to scale, we all want to just go big, go fast, go now.
The innovation.
And it takes away our learning process of experimenting, of, like you were saying, sometimes students are given these fixed paradigms that they have to stick with. Okay, so you can't just go like throw that away and start. But there's this notion of the adjacent possible. So sometimes innovation doesn't have to be radically upside down. It's just taking one piece and changing it. That's enough innovation to get you closer out the door. So this idea that that change has to be big and disruptive, that's one way. You could have disruptive innovation. You can have incremental innovation. And so
Beautiful that you explain it, because people, get confused.
yeah, like if it's not huge and not big, it's not innovative. Again, innovation becomes another term. Honestly, I think innovation's become another term.
One of those terms that now means
It's like everything.
nothing. Yeah.
It's
means
everything
and
and
nothing
nothing at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So if you were told at the moment in my career, I'm now in this position that I wanted to create these groups of sitting in a table and trying to deconstruct this process, and trying to create different projects from that connectivities, from that change making and social impact perspective. No, disconnected from profit, because when you disconnected from profit, you disconnected from the people that will be able to found it.
Support
No?
it, yeah.
It has to be connected with profit. It has to be connected with prosperity, but it had to be rooted in this. It had to be rooted in social impact, in connectiveness. It had to be rooted in change making, because the way that we have been doing it is not working.
Right.
So how would you, with your whole your experience, create a let's say a workshop. Like how will you start, thinking of how create that space so the people in the industry can sit and talk?
That's a big question.
It is, but
But like it is big, but so different parts.
so do it as an example from with the students, because we are on
Right.
the same level of them. We are lost. They are lost. So
Right.
how
But I
will
think
they
part of it
start?
is, you and I talked about this again over food, that part of it is educating. Wait, so our systems are driven by people. So number one, we always get the system. The system will always deliver what the system is designed for. So if we're not getting the right results, it's because the system is delivering the wrong results. But who is the system? And I know this is much easier said than done, but I have to break it down, because if not, it's overwhelming and then there's nothing for me to hope on. And I don't just hope on it. I see it. It's just not that easy to see, because systems are complex and our patience becomes thinner and shorter, and systems only become more dense and more complex. And if you pull here, something's going to get pushed here. And if you lift here, something's going to have short here. So I think starting with educating the mindset. So that's why what I do, I love. Some days, I have to be honest, I think, what do I do? I'm just teaching. I'm just teaching. For what? Well, because hopefully all I need is a few students in there to take a few of these moments of their own learning, not me, theirs. And it goes with them. And it may not be something that happens to them for 10 years, 15 years, maybe some of them lucky enough right after college, where that new way of thinking gives them what they need to do something different in the position of power that they have. So it has to start there.
Yes.
So start early. But then you have those of us that are in our mid-careers, like to say mid-careers. And we're there. We got it. Now what do? We have to hold space. We have to do this, right? We have to create conversations where we invite different people, but we also have to have a focus. So sometimes it's not just like, let's talk about all the big things in the world, and it's so esoteric and it's so abstract, but give us a problem. Give us something to focus on. Everybody can focus. This is why I love the social innovation concept, which is that social innovation can only have, I was just telling a friend, a staff member of mine, you're not going to find a job ad that says looking for a social innovator. That doesn't exist, because she kept saying, I want to get more into social innovation. And okay, but it's not, it's a thing that we do right now. It's a way of being.
Explain us what is social innovation. We have discussed this over dim sum someday back in the days, but explain us, because people in this environment where we are, what is very concrete, they have no idea. Construction is one of the industries that is very difficult to change. Those systems that you were talking that are very complex, they are complex, dense, and difficult to intervene. So what is social innovation for the people that is in this environment, so they can have a grasp?
It's innovation that's targeting a condition or a problem that's pervasive. That's just that has to do with the well-being of people and the community, right? So, and it doesn't have to be like, it's not an invention. It's not a product alone. People think of it, an innovation is an invention. It's not the same thing. But you could have an innovation in policy. You could have an innovation in mindset. You could have an innovation in a service. You could have innovation in a product, right? It's easy for me to say, think about innovation in a product. Great. But that's one way of looking at it. But just to translate it into, it could be so many more things. And as humans, we have to think about the mind, not just about the result, right? So the disposition, the mindset, the mental capacity of thinking differently before we can do differently, right? Correct. So, and I lost where I was, but so social innovation. So I think one of the interesting things is social innovation can only work when you have diversity of mindsets and diversity of experiences. It's saying, okay, here's a problem. How would Adriana see this problem? How would Sandra see this problem? We see it differently enough to bring value in skill set, but we see it similar enough to have some kind of common goal.
Ground, exactly.
Yeah.
So we can create community, because if you are not connected to whatever you are creating, or the result of the problem, you cannot connect to it.
Right. So I think when you ask, how do we go about, so education on the one hand, thinking about the students whose minds are still shaping, and I don't just mean young people. I mean people that are learners. And you have learners. I'm a learner, you're a learner. That's just who we are. But so create spaces for learning new things and exposure to conversations that sort of push and challenge where you are. And then real problems, a proxy situation or a real challenge, a community challenge that says, this is what we want to try to do. And what would happen if I brought a nurse,
Different.
a student, a banker, a doctor, an engineer? Like, we're going to see the same problem in very different ways.
Correct.
But every single one of those ways adds value to the solution that we want. So just practicing that the diversity of thought and then converging into some ideas to try. And then it's the idea of let's just try. It's that mindset of resilience. It's like, it's okay. It doesn't have to work. In fact, I don't want it to work because the faster I can find out what's not working, the faster I have a solution, the faster you get to your solution. So there's a quote that I put on my door for a while. If you knew you were 34 times, if you knew something like this, if you knew you were 34 attempts away from success, how fast would you get started on failing? Like, but
This fast.
you're right, but we don't think about it. We don't quantify it. So it's just, and again, we don't, this fear of, I don't want to try anything if it doesn't work. Well, you're not going to know. It sounds so simple, but to your point, I always say it sounds so simple. I feel like my job is so simple. And then it's like, but it's not,
It's
because
fantastic.
we just want to be able to create that space for people to be okay with those things.
Look, one of the things that I always said about education, and I was asked this a couple of times through my career: why you keep studying? Why you keep education?
Right.
Da, 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 it doesn't translate into money, whatever. And one of the most important things in my life is improving the way I think.
Mm-hmm.
The more I learn, the more I know that I don't know that much,
Right.
and I wanted to learn more.
Right.
So the concept of education and the concept of sitting on a table and exchanging your perspective, my perspective, and the perspective of everyone, it's been for me transformational. Like that, the more I do that, the more I grow, the more hopeful I am for the future of our industry, because the more I exchange with other people, I found the similarities. I found that happiness and that common goal, that is, everybody wants to live well. Everybody wants to experience a space, a career, a fulfilled life, and happy. Like, these are not uncommon themes.
Right.
We can meet in a point, and from there starting inputting each of us experiences and create something that really connects with everybody. And this is one of the reasons of this space. And the more I talk to people that has these different perspectives and can help us build a different industry, the more excited I get.
Right.
And the louder I get, the hands
the hands start flying.
because I get excited about having the opportunity to tell people that it's possible, that no matter the advance is little or big, you are one step closer to making a change that will transform industry, your life, and the life of the community. And that is impactful. That is change making. And that change making will make your life and the life of many, many people better. And it's about you showing up.
Yeah, and seeing yourself as a designer. I go back, we'll close with the same thing that we started, right?
Yes.
Which is, Adri, you're designing. You're actively designing right now. And I think people think that design is the pre-work, which is not 100% wrong, right? Because like we said, if all you do is design and you don't implement, then that's
nothing happens.
Nothing happens. Well, you're a great designer, but you're not actually putting anything into the world.
Action.
But I also think there's a different kind of design that is active, which is putting the right people together, having the ideas spread, giving people opportunity to engage and struggle with tension, to apply and to say, oh gosh, that didn't work. So design, I think, can be active, right? And so change making is design in many ways.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that, because I do believe that we as a professionals, we have the power.
Absolutely.
To change. The tremendous responsibility that we carry with the decisions that we make need to be addressed. we need to be responsible of the decisions that we make. We need to understand that we are not islands. We need to understand that we need to connect. We need to understand that this type of different ways of connecting and reconnecting with everybody involved in whatever we are doing is the way forward.
Right. Design is the way.
Design is the way. Design is the way. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it, Sandra. I don't know if you want to say something to close the episode. This is the end.
I think this is great. No, and I appreciate you pushing me into this space because
I admire so much.
I would imagine it's interesting how just the whole word, really, truly, the notion of design has been one of the most empowering conversations that I've been having with students when I tell them we're all designers. And they're like, what are you talking about? To them, design is aesthetics, it's beauty, it's art. And I say, yes, it's all those things. And it's every day. It's everyday action that you choose to make for your life and for the life of others. And so I think this is a really cool way that we've brought our worlds together and the integrative, connective tissue. This is just a great example. So this has been extremely exciting for me. And I can't wait we've talked about this, to introduce you into the world of students again here so that they can start understanding what this is about in a way that's not necessarily taught in books right now.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Deconstruction Podcast. Your 5-star reviews really help us continue what we do. Please rate your listening experience, and let's keep building this beautiful community together. For exclusive access to more design content, visit thearchitecturalauthority.com or download our app from the App Store or Google Play. Until next time, stay creative.